Welcome to Matters Financial with Geopolitical from a Frontier. Thank you for stopping by. I'm always grateful. I participated in an Al Jazeera inside story about BRICS. I think I was pouring cold water on everybody. They were big enthusiasts. But do take a look if you get a chance. Laura Kyle was the presenter, some great guests. Sriram Chaulia, the Dean of the Jindal School of International Affairs, myself, and Anastasia Nesvetai Iova, who's the director of the City Political Economy Research Center at City University. My piece over the weekend was about Ethiopia, and I was saying that its reputation has been shattered by political tensions, amongst other things, and now I discover that new crimes under Ethiopia's state of emergency, protest gestures, posting on Facebook, and listening to the voice of America. Macro thoughts, Gilts slumped and then rebounded, so we're going to have an interesting session today, but there was a big sell-off. Inflation is being printed, and we might very well get a big headline print. Home thoughts, how astonishing if you hail from New England to find yourself living on the lip of the Mojave. I like the photograph. I miss my teenage daughters, who are both at university now in the United Kingdom, and at night I find myself sleeping in their room. And last night thinking, I wonder if she is to hear those sounds, the sounds of the house asleep. It's never quiet, is it? It's never silent. Political reflections, Russia offers brief pause in Aleppo bombing. Russia offered an 8-hour humanitarian pause in besieged eastern Aleppo as European Union foreign ministers issued a sharp statement accusing the Russian government of perpetrating likely war crimes in the Syrian city. Saudi Arabia, one of the chief backers of the Syrian opposition, had said it would increase the flow and the quantity of weaponry to moderate fighters in Aleppo if Russia refused to agree to a full ceasefire. Jubeiri insisted the opposition may be able to withstand the Russian Grozny-style assault, saying it has been able to stand up to the regime for 6 years. The tide goes in and out. I do not want al-Qaeda-linked forces in Aleppo or anywhere in Syria, or indeed anywhere on the planet, Jubeir said, adding Syria was becoming a magnet for extremists, but he argued it was unreasonable to demand al-Nusra forces leave before a full ceasefire. My view is that Putin absolutely did not want Aleppo to metastasize into a Benghazi, where it's largely accepted that mercenaries were implanted and led the revolution against Libya, against Gaddafi. And Putin, in my view, is prepared to do a Grozny. The patrons of the various proxies, Adel-Jubeir as one example, appear unwilling to raise the white flag. On that note, I'll put up a photograph of Prospect Peabody in Grozny, November 1995. Saudi Arabia, give us your money and don't ask about oil, as they swapped their traditional white robes for business suits and ties to meet with prospective investors ahead of the kingdom's first ever international bond sale. Saudi government officials talked at length about their vision for transforming the economy. When it came to an oil price increasingly influenced by Iran and the proxy war in Yemen, they were less forthcoming. Every time anyone in our meeting asked about oil, they pushed back. The fact that they refused to take questions on oil prices or how much is achievable on budget rationalization have left many investors with half a picture. The sale marks a pivotal year for Saudi Arabia. The kingdom awoke to the reality that collapsing oil prices had made its economic model unsustainable, while the roadshow provides investors with a window on a country that's never before had to open its books. It's also raised questions about just how bad things might get. This is a debut deal, so there will be interest for sure in it, but investors will have to price their undefined fiscal goals somehow. The New York Times says that at home he cuts salaries and freezes contracts. On holiday, the Saudi prince buys a $550 million yacht. Read the story. Melania Trump dismisses Donald Trump's sexual assault comments as boys talk. I don't know that person that would talk that way, and that he would say that kind of stuff in private, she told CNN's Anderson Cooper Monday evening, explaining that he was egged on by the then Access Hollywood host Billy Bush. I heard many different stuff, boys talk, she said. Jared Kushner has held talks to set up Trump TV, and some of the cynics might say that was the only intention. It really wasn't to be president of the United States. And there is nothing new about this. Howard Zinn, in People's History of the United States, quotes Henry Adams, who wrote to his friend about the presidential election. We are plunged in politics funnier than words can express. Very great issues are involved, but the amusing thing is that no one talks about real interests. By common consent, they agree to let these alone. We are afraid to discuss them. Instead of this, the press is engaged in a most amusing dispute whether Mr. Cleveland had an illegitimate child and did or did not live with more than one mistress. The choice is yours. And just explaining that serious issues sometimes are not really discussed. ISIS launch SVBIED attack near Mosul's front line. There is, however, a new form of military engagement on the world stage and is principally practiced by the United States. It is called hybrid warfare. 10-year gilt yields climbed yesterday to the highest since the June 23rd referendum. We're marching resolutely higher on yields, said Mark Oswald, strategist at ADM Investor Services International. With the pound doing what it's been doing, investors are starting to revise up their inflation expectations. He said it's going to be a choppy ride. The annual inflation rate rose to 0.9% in September, the highest since November 2014. Economists surveyed by Bloomberg predicted before official data due tomorrow. A market gauge of price growth expectations known as the 10-year break-even rate touched a 2.5-year high of 3.07% last week and was at 2.92% yesterday. Gilts climbed as high as 1.22% before improving back down to 112. Let's see what today brings. Currency markets: Euro 110.16, dollar index 97.69, just coming off a 7-month high. Japanese yen 104.03, Swissy 0.9873, the pound around the 122.27 level. Aussie 0.7670 when I looked last, India rupee 66.755, South Korean won 1133.34. The Rial 320.53, Egyptian pound 8.8790, but bear in mind the Egyptian pound, the unofficial rate is over 14. South African rand, a little bit firmer, around 14.06. The Bloomberg Spot Index tracks the currency against 10 major peers, fell 0.2% after dropping 0.3% on Monday. It's very orderly, touched a 7-month high on October the 13th. Euro dollar, I think the euro's had a lift because of euro sterling as people have tried to unwind long sterling positions, but ultimately I think the challenges Europe faces are real, whether it's a Tal exit, a Frexit, or whatever you care to call it. Therefore, I think the market will revert back to euro concerns at some point. Bill Winters just got a lucky break. This is Bloomberg. Gadfly, Standard Chartered CEO, hasn't found a magic wand to make regulators overlook the bank's past misconduct, nor has he discovered potions to ward off Brexit risks or boost returns in a low-rate environment. But it looks as if his sticky loans in India are finally starting to move again. As much as $5 billion of the $13 billion that the billionaire Ruia brothers are getting by selling SR Oil, which controls India's second-largest refinery, will go toward repaying lenders in the holding company SR Global, Director Prashant Ruia told Bloomberg News. Assuming Stanchard's share of that kitty is $2.5 billion, that's half of Winter's $5 billion. India problem solved. Look at this recent leg up in palm oil prices in Malaysia. They've surged 25% since July. Thank you to David Inglis. Gold, last time I looked, 1259.03, but I think 1300 is now resistance, and we're going to 1200. Crude oil flatlined for a little while after rallying sharply up to these sort of range highs. We're at $50.64, and I expect it to start to fall back in short order. Point of fact, Philippines deploys 1.4 million workers abroad in 2014. Remittances are down sharply because a lot of them are in Saudi Arabia. Coming to sub-Saharan Africa, Congo's top court has approved the postponement of presidential elections. The Constitutional Court in the DRC said on Monday it had approved a petition by the Electoral Commission to delay a presidential election for November, allowing President Joseph Kabila to remain in office until April 2018. Kabila was due to step down in December, when his two-term mandate expires, and his opponents say they fear he intends to first prolong his term in office and then change the constitution to enable himself to run again. I don't think it's going to be possible, to be frank. Bright colours, loud music everywhere. Kinshasa pretty cool. That's David Pilling of the FT, who must be on a mission there. South African President Jacob Zuma appears increasingly vulnerable in a power struggle with his finance chief. Zuma appears increasingly vulnerable after a series of new allegations emerged about the business dealings of members of a wealthy family who are his friends and in business with his son. Pravin Gordhan is receiving growing support from senior government officials as he faces fraud charges. On Friday, he went on the offensive by disclosing in an affidavit to the High Court that members of the Gupta family and companies they control have been implicated in suspicious transactions worth $475 million over the past 4 years. This is an all-out fight, Roland Henwood said. It's a political fight that involves the use of institutions such as the National Prosecuting Authority. It involves using the judiciary, and let's be clear, the one weakness the Zuma administration has been the judiciary. Pravin Gordhan is proving a formidable and subtle adversary to the president. He said in his at a function I was at in London, "Welcome to the underground," he said to Lionel Barber, when Barber was telling Pravin how he met Julius Malema in a safe house in the Kruger. And he's proving pretty adept at maneuvering in the underground, isn't he? This is Pravin Gordhan. South African all shares up just 0.15% year to date. Dollar Rand firming up 14.06 last. Nigerian all share down 3.52% this year. Ghana Stock Exchange Composite Index down 11.58% this year. Let's come to Kenya. Standard & Poor's has upgraded Kenya's credit outlook to stable from negative, citing sustained economic growth, reduced political tension, and stabilizing public debt. Since our last review, government financing pressures have abated somewhat, interest rates have come down, and the exchange rate has remained stable. Additionally, we understand oversight of the Public Debt Management Office has been bolstered, and new debt management systems have been introduced. We view these factors as supportive of the government's creditworthiness as S&P. SIB says the full impact of the new law on net interest income will start to be felt from next year, with the highest decline recorded by Co-op Bank, 24.3% decline, followed by Equity, whose interest earnings are set to fall 23.5%. Barclays is projected to see a decline of 15.2%. The new law passed in August put a cap on the cost of loans and stipulated the minimum interest rate payable on customers' deposits. Kenyan opposition says any new Eurobond could become odious debt. On Friday, notwithstanding the fact that Kenya was upgraded, this is the Prime Minister Raila Odinga. He was quite successful with this whole campaign in a political sense until he started accusing the Federal Reserve for facilitating this theft. Tullow seeks truckers for early shipments of first Kenya oil. It's a pilot scheme ahead of full field development to help the government of Kenya and the Kenya joint venture partners better understand the technical and logistical requirements of oil production. Tullow spokesman. The company has discovered a waxy crude that can harden if not heated. So exactly what temperature the oil needs to be transported at will form an important part of the pilot project, he said. Kenya Airways has surged 21.05% over the last 4 weeks, and one can call that the Michael Joseph effect. Nairobi All Share fell 0.83% yesterday. It's down 6.39% year to date. NSE 20 down 19.73% year to date. Once again, thank you for stopping by. I'm always grateful.